So Trump is going to provide immunity to police officers that are illegally selling guns. When you hear that, what do you think? Do you think that's clickbait? Maybe at the very least you think I'm full of crap and you need to hear more and see what I'm actually referring to. Well, you would be right. And that is how the story is being portrayed, at least by one publication, because there are officers throughout 23 different states in the United States that are selling guns illegally to Americans and other people. And that is the premise of the story that we're going to cover. But how Trump actually works into it is the deceptive part. And I really want to point this out and just show you that sometimes when you're reading things like this, even though there's a lot of truth in the article, sometimes there can be half-truths or even lies attached to that same article that you really need to pay attention to. So I'm going to give you my opinion. I want to hear yours after the video. Let me know what you think down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now let's just be honest. Titles are one of those things for YouTubers you have to, emphasize and almost make bolder claims than what you actually mean, because almost every YouTuber that is worth their salt, that has a good following, that is reputable, will give you a title that may be kind of clickbait, but they're going to touch on that subject. They're going to tell you it's their opinion, right? And even though in the title it may be portrayed as 100% factual, they're still going to say, in my opinion, right? Most people do that. But at least we touch on somewhere in that title, somewhere that subject is going to be touched on. That's what most of us do, right? That are reputable. But one thing that you don't do is you don't clickbait a title and then never talk about the subject at hand. There has to be some reference back to that title. And so I'm reading this article, and it's by The Vibe. I've never heard of them before, but essentially it was talking about how police officers are illegally selling guns. This has been found across 23 different states since 2017, and you have some more egregious examples. Of course, these are the ones they like to point out, where police officers, I think there was a police officer or a chief of police, a mayor, somebody else that was, it was like a ring of gun selling to Mexican cartels. And then you had others that were actually, two police chiefs and a Delta Force agent that were actually conspiring with a known Russian international arms trafficker. These guys pleaded guilty, so it's not just hearsay. This is actually what's going on. From California to the Carolinas, this is happening all across the United States. Like I said, I think as of right now, it's been confirmed in 23 different states. Now, let me just go ahead and say there was an incident where a police force of 3, somewhere in Iowa, with a population of under 1,000, had ordered like 90 full autos, a Gatling gun, some other stuff. I'm just going to throw it out there. I would be a terrible police officer because I would be ordering STG 44s, MP40s, full auto MP5s, Gatling guns, tanks. I would be ordering everything under the sun. I could be a police force of 1, and I would still be ordering all that, and they would be investigating me really quickly. So for me to have access to any of that, 100% would not be a great idea, and I wouldn't be selling them. I'd be shooting them. So it wouldn't be great for me to be in that position. And so I kind of, fully understand. I would be trying to get all kinds of cool stuff just so I can go out and shoot. And that's what a lot of these guys are doing. They're buying them at exorbitantly higher rates because they don't want to maybe go through any kind of background check. They don't want the government to know what they have or everything they have. I saw this one reporter on CBS. She's talking about how, their law enforcement agencies are getting them to sign off basically to get permission to have this stuff. Now, it is not true that only law enforcement has access to full autos and guns like this. I've talked about this before. If you have an SOT and FFL, you can get full autos and pretty much anything you want. Now, of course, the prices of the guns made before 1986 are going to be very expensive, but they can still be had assuming you have the proper licensing. There's some other situations out there too, but that's essentially what you have to have in order to obtain full autos. But it's not just law enforcement that can have this stuff. And like I said, the majority of the people that are getting these are going out and having a good time. They're shooting. They're gun owners. They're enthusiasts. They just found a different way in order to obtain this stuff. Most of them are not going out and doing some harm to other Americans or selling them to frickin' cartels. There's a lot of good police officers, okay? I say that every single time I have police officers or I talk about them at all. There's a lot of good ones, but there's a lot of bad ones too, right? And the ATF, cracking down on this type of stuff is a joke because the ATF has purposely sold guns to people that shouldn't have guns, right? They've purposely flooded certain markets, especially along the border with Fast and Furious, to get some of these guns in hopes of those guns making it to higher level cartel members so they can eventually bust them, whatever. At the end of the day, they're guilty of doing stuff like this as well. So to say the ATF is somehow on a moral high ground because they're bringing some of these people to prosecution, no, I don't buy that at all. So this comes back to Trump, because in this same article, I'm reading along, and my mom, who helps me out with stories and stuff, she sends me this article. She's like, Trump is going to provide these people with immunity. I'm like, what? So I read the article, and there's no split in the headline, right? When you read the headline at the top, it comes down, and there's a picture of Trump after everything we just basically talked about. And then it talks about how Trump is going to provide police officers with immunity. It has nothing to do with this story at all. They make it seem like it does, but it doesn't. He's talking about providing immunity to police officers that have been wronged when they're trying to protect and serve. We're talking about good police officers, right, that are unable to kind of do their jobs because they could be unfairly criticized for saving somebody's life or for protecting their own. Not saying that all police shootings are justified, but at the end of the day, that is running through probably most police officers' minds when they have to draw their gun, right? When they come across a sketchy situation. Is BLM going to be all over this city the next day, burning this place to the ground? Look how they're treating Daniel Penny, right? He was protecting people in a subway, and he got put on trial. Now, of course, he was just, acquitted of all charges, but they really tried to send this dude to jail for the rest of his life for protecting people in a subway. Did he hold him too long? For sure, right? But at the end of the day, he was trying to protect that subway. So no matter what you do in whatever situation, depending on who it is and who you're trying to defend yourself against, it could be absolute chaos. That's what Trump is talking about. But still, Trump can't provide immunity to people that are charged on a state level. There's actually a great example of this. Derek Chauvin, right, with George Floyd. He's charged on a state level and on a federal level. Okay, state level is 22 years. Federal, I think, is 21, maybe vice versa. Well, those terms are being served consecutively. So even if he were to acquit, and I'm not saying he would, but let's just, pretend, right, make believe world. Let's just say he were to actually provide immunity to Derek Chauvin. It would eliminate, right, probably that federal charge, but he would still be serving time in prison. Maybe he moves from a federal penitentiary, but still, it's not really going to do anything because he's charged on a state level. Only on a federal level, only federal level, would he be able to do anything like that. So, this again, once again, is the form of deception that you will see. And it's not like it's, my mom's fault or anybody's fault. When you read this article, if you don't look at it close enough, you kind of think that Trump is backing something like this when he absolutely has not said anything like that, nor would he. So there you go, man. There's my opinion. But of course, I want to hear yours. No matter if you agree or disagree, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.